Hello everybody in the chess world. Today I'm going to show you the Chigorin defense for black. And well, yeah, in general terms I'm going to show it from white's point of view. I mean, I do face this opening quite often, so I want to show you what to play with white. But having said that, this is again, as I said from other openings in other videos, I think it's an opening that is really cool for black. I think it should be played more often. I don't see it too much in GM games, but also in either in tournaments, in clubs, even in blitz. So what it is basically black playing against the Queen's Gambit, g5 followed by knight c6. So basically we'll see it like this, and here we play the Queen's Gambit and knight c6. This is the Chigorin defense. But another version is sometimes in here with white, I play something like knight on f3 and I see knight c6. So now going for c4, we'll go to bishop on g4, and this will be the Chigorin defense, another version of the Chigorin defense. Now, to understand what is the spirit, let us go into the purest version, because whenever I show an opening that is not played quite often, I think that the best way to understand it is to compare it to what actually played more often. So after, let us say c4 and knight c6, well, what will happen, in comparison with a normal Queen's Gambit opening? Well, in here there is no pawn on e6 or on c6, so it will be logical to see c takes e5. So now it's easier to see what is black's idea. So black's idea is they recapture the queen, and they're hitting our d4 pawn. So we can protect it by knight on f3. I mean, this is possible. But let us say we play, and then knight f3, we could get, for example, bishop on g4. This is classical. They're trying to be able to play e5 someday, but let us say e3, well, e5. And again, it seems like white is saying, okay, but now I develop a piece and I win a tempo or a queen. And black says, no, I'm going to pin that knight. And well, black has managed to play both d5 and e5 in the opening. So, of course, we can play bishop on d2, and black will say, okay, I will give you the pair of bishops in exchange for having played those central pawn moves. But, well, this way you won't win a tempo over my queen, and after bishop takes on c3, well, there's tons of theory. This is not the line that I play with white. This is totally player, there's tons of theory about that. I play different stuff, but this will be the main idea. This is the easiest way to understand that. Okay, with this, whenever a white knight comes here, well, black will probably play like this, blow this knight up, so there's more control of e5. Some they play in e5, so it's normal. Black is saying, I want to play both d5 and e5 in the opening, and that way, like if we go back to, I don't know, this line, well, we can see that, I don't know, let us say knight on f3, bishop on g4. This is possible. I don't know. Someday black might play long castles as well. So there is this other thing where, well, maybe black, instead of playing short castles, that they play long castles. There are some dynamics in the position. These are good ideas. So it's more normal for me to play knight f3 on move 2. So I'll mainly focus on this version of the Chigorin defense. But in case you like the Queen's Gambit, I remember, and it is some move order that I play once in a while, and I remember that after knight on c6, one move, my main move here was knight on c3, and not c takes d5, nor knight on f3. I like this knight on c3 much better, and because the idea is that, okay, we're hitting on d5, and the idea is that after d takes e4, we were kind of playing some sort of Aldin counter gambit, but with colors reverse. We just play g5, winning a tempo over the knight, and okay, the knight will choose between knight on e5 or knight on a5. Let us see that. After knight on a5, we have queen a4 check. We're obviously not winning that knight on a5 because they'll play c6, and now the queen on d8 is protecting the knight. But for example, check out this line, because this was my main line when, in some tournament games a few years ago, I played b4. This forces, of course, c takes b3, taking on passant. And after a takes b3, well, we have some ideas that maybe we'll play b4, one day, trying to trap that knight. At this point, we're hitting that knight because, a takes b3 has opened up this line for the rook, right? So, I don't know. This is interesting. So it's like, well, what do we do with black? Because if they were to play, I don't know, b6 in here, well, we'll probably have at least b4, and then we'll take on c6. So it's not so easy. But look at this. I mean, e6 was like a main line. I mean, quite interesting, right? Because now if we take everything, well, they'll recover the material with this move. So in my prep, I had bishop on d2 here, threatening back, the knight. And again, b6 received b4 in here, trying to gain the pawn on c6. So the main line was actually knight takes b3, queen takes, and e takes d5. So black takes 3 pawns for the minor piece. I mean, I think e4 was very aggressive, was my main move here. It's quite interesting for both colors. I like this thing about this line. Okay, going back, we came from this line, right? Knight c6, and we said knight c3, pawn takes e5. There is also knight on e5, which is played more often than knight on a5. And here the main move is f4, where we'll see, well, knight g6, I think it exists, but basically knight d7 and knight g4 are main moves. Against both moves, we just play e4, so typical thing where we take the central space with the pawns, and we just want to be able to recapture the pawn with bishop takes on c4. And e5, I think I saw this. f5, now we're hitting the knight on g4, but knight a2 h6. I mean, you can see some bizarre placement of minor pieces, in this sort of opening. And I think instead of bishop takes e4, I saw queen a4 check, bishop there, and queen takes, but now c6. So I think you can see dynamics and ideas for both sides. White is a little better here. And going back after this f4, I also saw this knight on d7, and instead of knight on g4, again e4 comes, and now it's kind of more like an elegant defense for black. I saw knight b6, a4, a5, and bishop on e3, finally e6. I mean, here basically I think that the most logical thing is to blow up this guy and just play bishop takes on c4. I mean, again, white is better here. I mean, I think it's quite clear that white is better. But okay, these are interesting lines. So going back, I told you that, well, I'm pretty interested in this version of the Chigorin, which I think in general terms might be considered like a better version for black than the one without knights on the knight on f3. But bishop g4 is the main line, so it's quite clear. So there are 1,000 lines in here for both sides. And for white, I like this c takes d5 line, which initially looks like this is what black wants, because black just takes here. And again, if we were to take g takes on f3 or e takes on f3, both moves are possible and theoretical. Well, the same thing as in the other game will happen, right? Like a queen takes d5. We still don't have knight on c3 to win the tempo because they're hitting our d pawn. But I don't think, I mean, we can just protect that pawn. e6 hasn't been played, so then we're probably going to have, I don't know, something like this, maybe similar to the first line that I showed you. But actually, after after the bishop on g4, c takes d5, and bishop takes on f3, d takes e6 is what I usually play. And why did I say, well, this is what black wants? Well, because of course they play bishop takes on c6, the bishop gets away from the threat, so they're not a piece down, they recover the pawn. But in here the thing is, knight c3 is the main move, and we're intending to play e4, and once again having the great big center. So e6 is basically the main line in here, and we see e4, bishop b4, pinning the knight and hitting therefore that pawn on e4, and finally f3. So I'm gonna go back to this position because, as I said in another video, I think that knight on f6 is a much better move. But first, I want to show you like the old main line and the main theory here. Okay, here the main move is knight on e7. I think that one of the best options for black is just to throw f5 immediately. I think this is a pretty good move for black. But since I'm showing this from white's point of view, I want you to see how, if you look at this position, you might think, okay, this knight on c3 is pinned. This bishop is hitting here, and I have this queen check available which then will take on e4. Can I do something with tactics? Well, the answer is no. For example, I mean, taking immediately, of course, is awful because we just have queen on e4 check, followed by queen takes on b4. We don't even have to take care of that bishop on e4. But with the same idea, trying to improve on that idea, we might say, okay, let us just take it here. And after pawn takes, now bishop takes on e4, pawn takes and queen checks. Well, this simply doesn't work at all. You know, we just play king on d2, queen takes e4, I don't know, queen on f3. I think that we're even already forcing the exchange of queens, so there's nothing to show for the piece because we're even on b7. So I don't know, just a little detail that I think you should be aware of with white. And if you like this opening with black, just don't rush any sacrifice because they usually don't work. So, well, as I said, knight e4 is basically the main move. I've seen in theory stuff like bishop c4, queen on d7, and bishop on e3. I mean, there are different ways of to place the pieces for both sides. Well, both short and long castles are possible here for black. And it's hard to recommend to say which move is better. I mean, I've seen a game in which black rushed it again a little bit with f5. It's probably not a good move because we see this queen on b3 hitting the bishop and the pawn on e6. And in that game, after this exchange, well, I mean, I don't think black wants to play king on f7. It's too much. We can take. I mean, the king will be too exposed. So what to do to protect that e6 pawn? You know, in the game, f takes e4 follow, but hey, bishop takes on e6, intermediate move. And after queen d6, black just recapture. Okay, white play bishop takes on e4, but after castles, I think this is objectively kind of winning already for white or close. It's too much. You can see that there is a clear problem now with development with black's king that cannot castle to either side. So again, you know, they should be careful. Going back to this moment with f3, I think f5 immediately is a very interesting move for black because it's kind of forcing, you know. Okay, we could play, I mean, not sure what to play. I mean, I saw this pawn takes, and a3 was given as an interesting move for white. It probably is. I saw this game with queen checks, g3 and queen checks back, and after king on f2, black just exchanged on c3, and they went long castles. It's hard to say. This game followed bishop c4 and queen e8, interesting move with the simple idea of following it up with queen on h5. And then we saw rook e1, queen h5. I think white played h4 in this game. I mean, it's really chaotic. You know, it's hard to play for both sides. But I want to go back to, well, my real recommendation for, my real advice for black is not to go into this main line, all main line e6, but knight on f6. Because I show the idea of this move in another old video that I show you. I suffer a really quick defeat in a tournament game in which I thought that I will, by playing f3, I will just transpose. You know, my idea was, okay, black will play e6, I will just go e4, will transpose into the main line. But once I played f3, I received this cold shower e5. And as I said in the other video, as soon as I saw this move, I was like, okay, this now I see the idea of knight f6. Now if I take it, they could even exchange queens now, but there's no need for that. Just knight on d7. They're going to follow it up with knight takes on e5 and having a great control. You know, I mean, I think black is already better. So the thing is, after knight on f6, instead of f3, the main line is bishop on g5. I learned this the hard way, as I said, but I learned this after that game, you know, some time after that game. And this is basically what I will recommend in this position for black, definitely, knight on f6. And after this theoretical bishop on g5 line, well, my favorite move for black here is queen on d6. But there are also, I mean, in e6, like the normal move, and knight on d5. These are decent options for black. So let us say the e6, e3 is a move here for, I mean, white can play like e3, more tranquil, but there is also, of course, f3, more like on the main lines. And, well, I've even seen a game in which after bishop on e7, I mean, I will definitely play e4 in this position, but I saw another game in which, you know, a strong white player played e3 castles, just they play this position. Still, I think that after this, it will be much nicer to play e4 and go for the whole central space. Going back, after bishop on g5, knight on d5 is definitely another cool option. We can always choose between e3, bishop on e2 and castles, let us say, or f3, e4, play more aggressively. Yeah, it's always, we give something, we take something. We take the space, we're a little bit weaker, or we play with e3, more tranquil, but less counter play for black. This is a general thing in this line. So at least we have that. We have the choice, with white. So let us hear f3. I like to show the aggressive option. It's interesting. The other lines are easier to play. It will be easier for all of you to know what to do, just playing tranquil chess. And for example, h6, this was in a game, and look at this, because white doesn't want to give up the control of the f4 square, so they want to go through this diagonal, after the attack. So they don't want to go back to c1, they'll just go back to d2. Not a nice square for the bishop, but after e6 they play e4. The idea is, okay, now if knight takes c3, we are justifying the position of this bishop, we'll recapture with the bishop, so black went knight on b6, but now just okay, wasting one more tempo, but correcting the position of that bishop on e3. And again, these are more similar positions than those of the lines with e6 instead of knight on f6. And bishop on d6, bishop on d3 was the continuation in one of these games. Again, unclear position, playable for both, but you can see there are similar characteristics so mostly in these f3, e4 lines. Okay, finally, again, bishop on g5. I think that queen d6 is my favorite move for black in this position. But queen d3, this mirror move by white. And I saw this game with long castles and rook d1. And it's funny, initially it looks like black is doing great, and then it's not so clear, because also by playing long castles so early, well, black is showing his cards a little bit earlier. Okay, you can see in this position after long castles, they are hitting our d-pawn. They want to answer a possible e3 with e5, so yeah, they're going active at the same time that they develop that. Again, they have shown where the king is going to be. So I like this rook d1 instead of, yeah, again, mirroring that move with long castles. Just, rook d1. Maybe I'll try to play short castles and attack the black's king on the queen side. And I saw this game with h6, bishop on h4, queen b4. Hey, not bad, actually. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I will play e3 here with white, because I think, okay, if they take out my b-pawn, I'll have a great counterplay against black's king. But watch out, because this bishop, if without this b-pawn, maybe it won't be so easy for me to harass this bishop, so they'll be too solid. And that is why I saw in this game rook on d2. Actually, yeah, it looks like a very artificial move, but effectively protecting the b-pawn. The game follow e6 and e3, g5 and bishop on g3, and knight on h5. Logical sequence by black. They'll make sure that they can take our pair of bishops. I think this is a good action by black. And the game follow a3 and queen on a5 and queen c2. And there are some ideas of playing b4 now for white. Like, I don't know, if b4 and queen takes on a3, maybe we'll have knight on b5. Again, things were looking great for black, and I think that they have a pretty cool position. But in practical terms, and I think white has a lot to go for here. So, okay, well, last but not the least, you will have to consider the possibility of some transpositions into the Alvin counter gambit. For example, c4 in here, I told you bishop on g4, but hey, e5 as an Alvin counter gambit, including knight on f3 and knight on c6. Hey, this is possible. I mean, you can see how in a way the Chigorin is a cousin of the Alvin counter gambit. So hey, even in this position, maybe black has the idea of continuing with e5. So it's interesting. The similarities there are cool. So as you saw, I think in general terms, Yeah, we should say that the white is usually able to get at least a slight advantage against this Chigorin defense, but I think it's very, very, very interesting, and you can see that there are a lot of different versions, according to what white plays, and have we included knight on f3 and knight on c6 or not. Very interesting. So at the same time that I wanted to show you how to possibilities on how to proceed against the Chigorin defense. Hey, I'm also here to suggest you to try it if you like it, because I think it's very, very interesting, and again, it's like a surprise weapon. Too few people play the Chigorin, so it's always a surprise for white. The white is in general not sure what to do for a long tournament game, also for blitz. So I hope you like the video. I'll leave my cat Citronette as usual to ask you to like, comment, share, and subscribe the video. And thanks a lot for watching. I will see you next time.